This is WNEM TV5 News at 11.
My dad got it and then he got shooted.
Compelling witness information in a murder case that never saw the light of day in court. If you ask prisoners why they're behind bars, a good many would probably say for no reason. They're innocent, just like the man we're about to introduce you to.
Yeah, there is something different about the case involving Salam Zora. After taking a closer look, we began to wonder, did an innocent man get sent to the slammer? Here's Gino Vici with this I-Team report.
This should never stand. It's just wrong.
Because there were things to the trial that I wished they would have asked.
He should have his freedom back.
Locked up for life, he was once a successful businessman revered by his family and praised by the community. Salam Zora is now referred to as inmate number 745154 at the Saginaw Correctional Facility.
The I-Team studied Zora's case for months. What we found, the jury who convicted him wasn't shown all of the evidence, from an apparent fingerprint on a knife to eyewitness testimony. But why? The more we dug for answers, the more questions we had.
What was my brother supposed to do? Just stand there and then being stabbed?
Was it cold-blooded murder or was it self-defense? Let's take you back to January 23, 2009. Zora travels from his home in Saginaw to Metro Detroit to meet his brother-in-law, Najim Madi. It was one of several stops that day. Madi was accused of stealing $200,000 cash from Zora's home. According to family members, Madi denied stealing the money and was infuriated he was being accused. The family also says Madi offered to meet with a priest and swear to God he was no thief.
We're Catholics, so our actions are stemmed from that faith. And so it was very important in that regard.
The two never made it to St. Joseph's Church in Sterling Heights where that meeting was supposed to happen. Instead, the visit ended at Madi's home with Zora shooting and killing him. Zora himself called 911. Moments later, Zora's brother Scott Batrice would answer a phone call that would turn his life upside down.
For me, this was such a huge thing. I was shocked.
At the time, Batrice was living in Saginaw and finishing medical school. He would soon become a doctor, a dream of his since leaving Iraq. Batrice says his family escaped persecution against a small group of Catholics known as Chaldeans. He says if it were not for his brother Salam, the family may have never found freedom. But in a twist of fate, Batrice is now fighting for his brother's freedom here in the U.S. According to the initial police report and by his own testimony during trial, Salam Zora admitted to shooting and killing his brother-in-law. After Madi charged Adam with a knife in one hand and a pitchfork in the other. But was the motive an apparent revenge for the large sum of money? That's what the prosecutor argued at trial. Zora testified that Madi attacked him before he fired several shots in self-defense. In fact, a half-dozen other witnesses corroborated this story. Even Madi's own 4-year-old son told police virtually the same thing.
I mean, what more do you need? I mean, anybody who looks at why are we, they would have said, why are we here?
Take a look at the child's video interview obtained by the I-Team and never before seen.
Did your dad, when he got shot with the gun, was it before or after he got the knife?
I think after he got the knife.
After is when you heard the boom boom?
Yeah.
You're pretty sure?
Surprisingly, this video was never entered as evidence during trial. And that's not all. None of those other witnesses were ever called to take the stand, not even Madi's own wife, who also happens to be Zora's sister. What does it all add up to? His brother says a wrongful conviction.
Because the first jury did not have the full evidence. They only listened to partial evidence.
But the question remains, would the interview with Madi's son and the presence of a fingerprint on the knife have changed the outcome of the trial?
You know, I think that would have been it. That would have ended the trial right there.
Now, where do we go from here? We will bring you part 2 of our special I-Team report in about 10 minutes.
A man in prison for a shooting that police say was murder, but was it?
A former juror in the case involving Salam Zora is now questioning the others who convicted him. Gino Vici has part 2 now of his special I-Team report.
You know, I think that would have been it. That would have ended the trial right there.
We found one former juror willing to speak on camera. He says Salam Zora should be a free man.
I'd think about it 3-4 hours a day.
Dale Barr says he's been living with an overwhelming sense of guilt for the past 6 years. Barr was part of the jury that convicted Zora back in 2009. He was selected as an alternate and was not part of deliberations. He says the jury should have found Zora innocent even without seeing the evidence that never made it to trial.
I don't know why I couldn't get it out of my mind. I would wake up in the middle of the night. I just kept thinking that some guy's in jail for a long time and he shouldn't be there.
Barr, who considers himself a firearms expert, says one piece of evidence stood out like a sore thumb.
No sense that he would go there during broad daylight with all these witnesses with a firearm half loaded with target ammo.
Zora was carrying a 9mm pistol. It was a gun he recently bought for his wife, and on the day of the shooting, it was loaded with only 5 target rounds. The bullets are much different than a normal defensive round like a hollow point. On impact, a hollow point bullet expands in order to increase damage. A target round does not. For Barr, that was enough to cast doubt on the prosecutor's theory that the killing was a planned revenge for missing money.
You may be wondering about those fingerprints. Were there any on the knife or the pitchfork allegedly in the hands of the victim when he was shot? The prosecutor during trial told jurors there were no prints. However, according to the defense, this lab report, made only available after trial, suggests otherwise. In fact, there were prints. However, those prints were unreadable.
This is a self-defense claim, all right? Having something there, it's different than having nothing.
No prints became the center of the state's case. No prints on the pitchfork or the knife means Maddie was not a threat, and therefore this was not self-defense. Rather, it was murder. In an affidavit filed with the Macomb County courts, shortly after Zora was found guilty, Zora's defense attorney, Carl Marlinga, blasted then-prosecutor Stephen Kaplan, accusing him of prosecutorial misconduct related to those prints. The affidavit states Marlinga was told there were no prints on the knife or the pitchfork, and for whatever reason, Marlinga simply didn't question the claim during trial. Marlinga went on to state that if he knew about an unreadable print, he says he would have called certain material witnesses to the stand, perhaps the lab technician or the medical examiner. Marlinga also criticized himself in that affidavit by saying he was essentially ineffective and that his client deserved a new trial. Well, we wanted to hear Kaplan's side of the story. He's no longer a prosecutor, he's a defense attorney. He declined an on-camera interview, but he did tell me that looking back, he still believes there was enough evidence to file charges. And as far as the fingerprints, Kaplan says that information was always made available to Marlinga. As for Marlinga, he's now a judge and is prohibited from commenting on the case. It's also important to point out it was Marlinga's decision not to use the interview with Maddie's son, where he describes his father as the attacker. So in the end, you be the judge. Do you think Salam Zora received a fair trial? Did the jury hear all the relevant evidence? In Michigan, you can't interview prisoners on camera, but I did get a chance to visit Zora, and he insisted he acted in self-defense and should be a free man, but says instead he'd settle for a new trial, but this time with all the evidence left out the first time. As for Patrice and his family, he says the fight for his brother's freedom will continue.
We're not going to give up. As long as it takes, we're going to continue to fight until the truth comes out.
With this I-Team report, Gino Vici, WNEM, TV5.
One final note, the defense did call some of the witnesses during a hearing for a retrial. That motion, however, for a retrial was denied, and the case is now headed to the state Supreme Court.
My dad got it, and then he got shooted.
Was Salam Zora wrongfully convicted? You just watched a video testimony suggesting he killed in self-defense. But that video was never shown to a jury. It's a story you saw only on TV5 News in January. Since our I-Team report first aired, there's been an outpouring of support for Zora, who is serving a life sentence. WNEM TV5's Gino Vici reports.
I'm very glad.
An outpouring of support. This after our I-Team report about Salam Zora, a once prominent member of the community in Saginaw, who is now an inmate at the Saginaw Correctional Facility in Freeland. Scott Patrice, Zora's younger brother, says the response since our story aired has been overwhelming.
And I think lots of people are concerned that in this case, it was a self-defense.
Since January of 2009, when Zora was convicted of second-degree murder for killing his own brother-in-law, Patrice has put his lifelong dream to become a doctor on hold. At the time, he had just finished medical school. Now he says his life's mission is to get his brother a new trial. Zora claimed the 2009 killing was in self-defense. This testimony of the victim's own son, who is also Zora's nephew, suggests Zora's claims were true.
My dad got it, and then he got shooted.
Unfortunately, this evidence was never shown to the jury. In addition, jurors were told the knife claimed to be in the hands of the victim when he was shot had no fingerprints, but a Michigan State Police crime lab report made available only after trial stated otherwise. In fact, there were fingerprints. However, those prints were unreadable. These facts have haunted Patrice and his family for the past 6 years.
This is evidence that, in essence, could have exonerated my brother.
Over the past several months, Patrice has collected thousands of signatures by going door to door. Even on the way out of our interview today, he collected one more. Here at TV5, we've received nearly 100 letters demanding that Salam Zora get a new trial. For Patrice, he says he's forever grateful to each and everyone who took the time to show their support for his brother who remains behind bars.
This just solidified in my mind that, you know, people do care when they see something that's done wrong to an individual.
Gino Vici joins us live from the Continuous News Center. So, Gino, where does the family go from here?
Well, Carrie, right now this case sits with the Michigan State Supreme Court. If the state's highest court denies the appeal, the family can still file an appeal in federal court. Now, if you'd like to voice your support for the family, we've put a link on our website to the free Salam Zora Facebook page. Live in the newsroom, Gino Vici, WNEM TV5. Back to you.
Gino, thank you. And if you want to see Gino's original report about Salam Zora, you can find it at WNEM.com.